Welcome back to IPP Thursday. Thank you for rejoining me. I'm glad to have you back with me. And today we're going to have another question for you. And I'll give you a moment to think about this. What's the biggest challenge that you have ever faced? And what did you do to accomplish your success? It's a tricky question. Some of you may have one challenge that you could think of. Some of you may have more than one. Some of you may have to take a moment to kind of think, gee, I can go right to the problem. Yeah, I know the biggest challenge I ever had. And you may think to yourself, wait a minute, I got to think about how I actually took steps to solve that and what worked for me. So take a moment. Think about that. And as you're thinking about that, what defines what a challenge is? What defines what a challenge is for you? For me, my biggest challenge, I'll be honest here, full disclosure, for a long time was just believing in myself. I didn't have confidence, and I didn't know that that was the problem. I thought no matter how hard I work, I've got to get this done. I got to try and be a perfectionist. I got to make sure it's all right. And I never realized that I never felt successful, even when I was successful, because I didn't believe in myself. And when I started to learn that I was my own problem, and that was a big problem, it was really hard to work through. And it had to be in small steps. And I can honestly say I couldn't do it alone. I did have to have some other people to kind of poke and prod at me with little questions along the way to help me figure it out. That was my biggest challenge. That may not look anything like what your biggest challenge was. So I actually think, if it's okay with you for a moment, I'd like to share a story with you. A story that I don't think a lot of people have heard about. Have you ever heard about Amy Purdy? No? Amy Purdy, at 19 years old, had a dream to be an Olympic medalist. And she wanted a goal for the gold. That dream came to a screaming halt when she was faced with her biggest challenge. She contracted a rare form of meningitis that attacked every organ in her body and resulted in her losing her legs from the knees down. How was she going to go to the Olympics? That's a big challenge, probably her biggest. You know what? I took a lot of inspiration from that story because that woman went on to be a Paralympic bronze medalist. An amazing feat. And why? Because she asked herself, how would I want my story to end? And she wanted it to end by fulfilling her dream. So I'm curious. Think about that when you think about your biggest challenge and how you got through it. What's your story? And how would you want it to end? We can see that perspective is everything, especially in this story that I just told. I don't think everyone would demonstrate the courage and the fortitude that Amy Purdy did to accomplish her dream. And by the way, go on to achieve many other things in her life. Because she was not just 19 yesterday, okay? So when you think about that, what's your biggest challenge? How do you want to be able to turn challenges, roadblocks, obstacles, whatever you want to call them, into opportunities? Because it's all about the way we're going to look at it. So with all of this in mind, you've been thinking about your biggest challenge. You've been thinking about how you turned it around to reach the success that you've had today. I'm wondering, what opportunities may you have overlooked as you were solving that biggest challenge? What do you go through today, and how do you find those opportunities? They could be small to end up in big successes. So let's get back to that question that Amy Purdy asked herself. If it's your story, how would you want it to end? We're not looking at an ending right now, but think about all the pages in between in that story. What are the opportunities on each one of those pages that take you to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, so that when you get to the end of the story, you look back and you feel as though you've conquered all those big challenges and you've chased and caught all of your biggest dreams. What would that feel like? Let's ponder these questions. I've given you a few. I've given you a couple of really big examples of big challenges. Maybe your challenge is not as big, but you know what I truly believe? It doesn't matter how we define what a big challenge is. If you feel that it's your biggest challenge, that's all that matters. And don't let anybody ever take that away from you. Because no matter what I felt of my biggest challenge, it'll be equal to what you feel inside about your biggest challenge. But the most important thing I want to leave with you today is that there's always possibility and opportunity at the end of every challenge. And if you look for it, then you are going to continue to achieve the success that you strive for. If you're not sure what questions to ask yourself, if you're not sure that you've even achieved your total success that you would like to, then I invite you to come back next week and listen to our next question, which may stir up some thoughts for you. And in the meantime, give some extra thought and look for one more opportunity that you can find to put that page in your story towards what you want it to end like. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of IPP Thursday, and I invite you to come back and listen again next week. Thank you very much for listening.